Hi, my name is Heather Hafner, and today we're going to be taking a look at understanding our ELA data at McCluskey Middle School. The purpose of this presentation is to identify and analyze changing student demographics, to analyze and identify trends in English language arts milestone data at McCluskey Middle School, to determine how McCluskey compares to Cobb County, and to identify strengths and weaknesses for English language arts goal setting. Let's start by taking a look at the student enrollment data at McCluskey Middle School. You'll notice that in 2015 to 16, our enrollment was up at 704 students, and it gradually declined from 683 in 2016-17 to 670 in the 2017-18 school year. I do want to take a moment to say, though, every 3 years we do get a large 6th grade class and numbers do go up again. I looked at the 2018-19 numbers and verified that there are currently at our school 684 students. So those enrollments numbers will begin to incline again. This is also due to the fact that we are a choice school, so that students can apply to attend our school if they so choose. Next, we're going to take a look at the student demographics at McCluskey. If you look at the top chart, in 2015-16, whites made up 62%, multiracial 6%, Hispanic 13%, Black 14%, and Asian Pacific Islander 5%. And as we moved into the 2016-17 school year, we noticed that the white group went down a percentage point, while the Black and Hispanic groups both increased. And then on to the 2017-18 school year, again, the white group decreased by 4% more, while the Black and Hispanic populations are consistently growing. So this is very promising. Looking on at the special education population, our students with disabilities in 2017-18 increased up to 25%. So that was a 3% increase from 2015-16. Our economically disadvantaged began at 38.6%, going up to 39, but then drastically dropping back down in 2017-18 to 33.6%. And our ELL population is standing pretty still. It did decrease some, but it never fluctuates too much more than a percentage or two. In reflecting on our student demographics, I noticed McCluskey's overall population is declining. While the white group makes up over half of the population, it has declined by 5%. Black and Hispanic populations make up the majority of the remaining population and are steadily increasing. Students with disability population has increased each year and makes up 25% of McCluskey's population. And finally, economically disadvantaged and ELL populations are decreasing. We are now going into our 4th year of the Georgia Milestones, and at its introduction in 2015, the Georgia Milestones provided students with a more rigorous assessment that tests greater depth of knowledge through application. The milestone assesses students through open-ended items as well as a writing component at every grade level and course within the English language arts assessment. The test also contains norm reference items in all content areas and courses to complement the criterion referenced information and to provide a national comparison. For our purposes today, we're going to be looking at the ELA milestone data results. Prior to reviewing the data, I did want to mention the milestone achievement levels. Beginning learners usually receive a 1, and that means that they did not yet demonstrate proficiency for a standard. Developing learners receive 2s and they demonstrate partial proficiency in the knowledge and skills necessary. Proficient learners are a 3. They demonstrate proficiency in the knowledge and skills necessary at this particular grade level and course. And distinguished learners receive 4s. They demonstrate advanced proficiency in the knowledge and skills that are needed for Georgia's content standards, and they are well prepared for the next grade level. In some instances, I have combined 2, 3, and 4s together as developing learners. Also, they do receive scores and are important on schools' CCRPI. This table shows McCluskey scores versus Cobb County scores in regards to ELA milestones over the past 3 years. And looking over here in the bottom right-hand corner of our graph, you will see McCluskey and Cobb's 2014-15 scores. And at this point in the 14-15 school year, McCluskey was performing above Cobb in all categories. But as we moved to the 15-16 school year, our distinguished category was still higher than Cobb's. Our proficient category was still higher, but we began to dip down a little bit in the developing learner category. As we move on to the 2016-17 school year, our distinguished category decreased and ran about 2% lower than what Cobb was displaying. And we were pretty together at the proficient mark with the 39% for McCluskey, 40% for Cobb County. And then McCluskey shot up in the developing learners category. The beginning category did become lower, which is fantastic because that shows that we're moving those kids up. We just need to find a way to move from developing to proficient and proficient onto distinguished. So in reflecting on Cobb and McCluskey's ELA scores and how they compare from the 2015 to 2017 school years, each year McCluskey's distinguished learner group decreased. McCluskey did have a 32.9% increase in their developing learners category in 2016 and 17, while Cobb's beginner learner group decreased over the years. McCluskey stayed rather consistent. Now we're going to take a look at McCluskey's end of grade ELA achievement data, and what this table shows is the percent of students reaching the achievement levels of 2, 3s, and 4s. When we start off with 6th grade here, you notice that from 16 to 17, their scores increased. Same thing with 7th grade, from the 16 school year to the 17 school year, their numbers increased of students who were achieving levels 2 to 4 on the Georgia milestones. Whereas in 8th grade, from the 16 to 17 school year, there was a decrease. However, in the 2018 school year, the 8th grade numbers shot up 3%, whereas the 6th and 7th grade numbers dropped. And I also think that it's noteworthy to show, or actually bring up, that even in 8th grade's lowest year, which was 2016, it's still substantially higher than any other grade level's highest number of students achieving levels 2 to 4 on the Georgia milestones. This table takes another different stance at McCluskey's ELA achievement data. Again, we're looking at the percentage of McCluskey students' achievement levels over 3 years. And as you can see here, starting in 2016, 17, 18, the beginner learning group has decreased, which is fantastic. But on the flip side, the distinguished learner group is decreasing as well over the course of 3 years. Developing learners, that category is increasing, which is good. There was a little dip here from 46% in 2016 down to 44, but now we're up to 53% proficient learners in regards to English language arts achievement. So in reflecting on McCluskey's proficiency achievement data of student scoring between a 2 and a 4 over the 3-year period, 6th grade has maintained around 80% of their students earning an achievement score of a 2, 3, or 4. And we noted that while 6th and 7th grade scores increased from 2016 to 2017, 8th grade scores decreased. 8th grade, however, did increase in 2018 by 3%. And again, 8th grade's lowest scoring year in 2016 was still higher than any other grade level's highest score over the 3-year period. And while the beginning learner group has decreased, which is great, so is the distinguished learner group. So we need to do some focusing and goal setting on moving kids from that proficient group up to distinguished. And the developing and proficient learner groups continue to grow, so that's good news. This is McCluskey's current 2017-18 English language arts achievement levels by grade level. Here we have the 6th grade, who has 216 students, 7th grade, which houses 183, and 8th grade, which has 239 students. And here you can see the number of students in the beginning, developing, proficient, and distinguished levels. I think it's great to note the proficient area tends to be the largest one in all 3 grade levels, followed by the developing. Distinguished is still the smallest, if it doesn't tie like it did here in 8th grade, it's still the smallest of the categories. So that might be one of the things that we look into in setting goals later on. And looking at this overview of the 8th grade English language arts milestone strand data, a couple of things definitely jumped out at me. Number one, the extended writing piece. Students are either given argumentative or informational expository, and over 90% of our students received the argument writing prompt. And for the most part, did a fairly decent job. Over half scored a 3 or 4, while 17.15% scored a 2 and 21.6% scored a 1. For the informational, it was so close in all 3 of the categories, the 3-4 score, the 2 score, and the 1 score, and such a small sample size to be able to really ascertain anything from that information. But looking at the reading and vocabulary strand as well as the writing and language strand, it definitely occurred to me that we've got some big groupings here that we need to work on. We've got over 30% people of our students scoring a 1 in both of these particular strands. 31 and 32% scoring a 2, with the least amount of our students scoring a 3 or a 4. So we really probably need to get a look at closer particulars in these strands to see how we can adjust our instruction, to see how we can adjust our assessments, to better serve the needs of our students. And taking a look at our student achievement level by ethnicity, a couple of things did strike me. Well, number one, Asian Pacific and Islanders are scoring proficient and distinguished, so that's phenomenal. That's great. Um, Multiracial, again, they have the developing and proficient. We do want to move those developings up to proficients, and we want to see some distinguished in there. But overall, I mean, they're performing well enough to do well at the next grade level. In regards to Hispanic, Black, and White, there is a little bit of a disconnect. Number one, not seeing any distinguished learners in the Black category and barely any in the Hispanic. There is a larger number of students in the developing category than there are in the proficient and distinguished for Blacks and Hispanics, whereas 32% of our white students are performing at a proficient level. So this does show me that there is a little bit of a achievement gap that we need to take a further look into as well. So reflecting on this last set of data, I noticed that at each grade level, the number of developing students is greater than beginning students. The number of proficient students is greater than the developing students. But however, the number of distinguished students is the lowest group. Further looking specifically at 8th graders' achievement by student group, it appears that there is an achievement gap among Black, Hispanic, and White. Efforts need to become focused on closing these gaps and moving the developing to the proficient as well as the proficient to the distinguished categories. And also I noticed that 90% of McCluskey students received the argumentative writing genre, and a little over 50% scored in the proficient and distinguished categories. In conclusion, and in planning for the future, efforts really need to become focused on closing the achievement gap between the Hispanic, Black, and White learners. There needs to be a focus to move more developing learners to the proficient category and the proficient learners to the distinguished category. I also believe that this presentation will prompt ELA teachers at McCluskey to take this data dive further by analyzing their own class's data, delving even deeper into the strands. This can prompt rich instructional strategy and assessment discussion among grade level subject areas, and can really be useful in helping us plan better lessons for the betterment of our students and their success on these sorts of tests.